is over there. Okay. Okay. And I kind of understand that you were throwing me the challenge that you wanted to make the best use of the time while you were in Barcelona. So I got ready this, I don't know if good, but huge agenda for them. So they could meet the most interesting or some of the most interesting people here, some of the most interesting teams. And I want to thank you for going through all the agenda with such enthusiasm, kindness, and I hope that you have, that in your mind now, you have even more clear, as you said, that Barcelona is a good place. Is one of the, in my opinion, one of the places with more potential in the world for games industry companies. And I wanted to use this a little bit of your time as well to share with this local talent some of the ideas that brought you here, all through the path from Sumea to the big success of SUPERCELL, and also some of the advices that you can share from an entrepreneur's point of view, and any other things that you have in mind. No? So first question for you, it would be something very easy and very difficult, I guess, at the same time, because we all have our own idea about SUPERCELL and its success. But how do you picture SUPERCELL now in your mind? When you think about your own company, how do you see your own company? How do you picture it?
Well, I think like if I think about SUPERCELL, it really like two things come to mind. The first is like, so why does SUPERCELL exist, and what's the goal? And for us, we kind of a dream is to kind of create games that would be that people would play for a very long time and that would be remembered forever. Like these games that would somehow be or become part of the history of games. And it's of course it's a very bold goal, but that's sort of inspiring to us, and that's the why the company exists. But then like, okay, how do we get there, and what's sort of the heart of SUPERCELL? In my mind, the heart of SUPERCELL are the people and the teams that form SUPERCELL. So I mean, SUPERCELL really it consists of these like independent teams, like full of like amazing talented people, like who all like work together with this kind of goal in mind, and that really is the heart and soul of SUPERCELL is these teams. We are a very, very team-centric culture. So meaning that, people like me who aren't part of any team, we have very little power actually. I mean, our most important goal is just to make and create an environment where these teams can be successful, but ultimately SUPERCELL is exactly as good or as bad as our teams are.
Mm-hmm. And how has your vision transformed? I mean, what was the vision that you had when you started up the company, and how it's been transformed to the company that it is today? Is it a change in your vision from the very beginning to now?
Well, there are like things that have changed dramatically, and then there are things that have not changed at all. And I think, well, it's easier to talk about the things that haven't changed. So I'll begin with those. So I would say that two things haven't changed. Like one is that when we started, like we were 6 co-founders, and I would say that 3 out of the 6 co-founders, I wasn't included, but 3 of those 6 were like complete like World of Warcraft addicts. I mean, like my co-founder Mikko, I mean, I think it even goes in his family. I hope he doesn't mind if I say, but I believe that his little brother met his wife via that game. So that's how deep it is. And then we founded SUPERCELL. I think Mikko had played World of Warcraft already like for 5 years or something. And then he had this thought that actually the reason why he keeps on coming back to that game, like day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, is it's not ultimately, it's not even the game itself, it's the other people that he plays the game with. And then Mikko had this idea that, hey, like would it be possible to like create like similar type of social experience, but for a much larger group of people than what World of Warcraft is doing? And then we had this idea that what if you could somehow bring these type of social gaming experiences to what we called kind of a mass market gaming platforms, which at that time, and now we're talking about 2010, like at that time, for what it meant to us was like platforms like, desktop Flash and Facebook and those type of platforms. And of course, mobile was part of the picture, but and it's hard to imagine today, but it wasn't the primary platform. So what hasn't changed is this idea that we want to do games that people play for a very long time, and they're going to be the ultimate glue that like keeps players together, and playing the game is the social nature. So that hasn't changed. The other thing that hasn't changed is that we actually, when we founded the company, we used this kind of tagline, best people make the best games. And what it kind of meant to us was that we ultimately believe that it's all about like actually about the people. I mean, actually, and getting the best people, and nothing else matters in the end. However, like even that has changed over the years. So these days we don't say that best people make the best games, because we realize that actually it's not the individuals, it's not the best individuals as such, it is the best teams. Mm-hmm. So that's how that has changed. But still, it's that kind of what hasn't changed is that it's just a philosophy and the belief in the value of people. Mm-hmm. So those things haven't changed, but then a million other things have changed a lot. So as I said, we started with this cross-platform strategy. Our idea was that we would create these sort of almost like virtual worlds or game experiences which you could access from multiple platforms. And I still remember this slide that I guess I created in the early days, that you have a game in the middle, and then you could access from your desktop, web, from Facebook, from your mobile, and from tablets, and that strategy, at least for us, like in those days, again in 2010, it proved to be like a really bad idea. Like for a small team, we spread our resources way too thin, and there were many other problems with that strategy. Also, like despite the kind of our desire to create games for as wide audience as possible, we started from a way too hardcore game which called Gunshine, and that game was a total failure. And it was our first game, and those type of things have changed a lot.
Do you think that cross-platform strategy could come back someday?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I feel that we still have, at least I have some scars in my back from those days. But maybe one day those will heal. And of course, there are examples. Like look at Fortnite, for example, and they've proven that it can actually work beautifully. But I do think it depends on a lot on the game and what you're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Was Digital Chocolate a game changer for your particular career, and also? Put it the other way, would SUPERCELL be possible with that previous stage?
No, I mean I owe so much to the Digital Chocolate days. I really do. Like I've been, I don't know where it comes from, but I've been so super lucky in my life. Like we and I think the whole Digital Chocolate story is a great example. But it's really hard to like differentiate what is success and what is failure. Because had you asked me in 2010, like when I left Digital Chocolate, that okay, was that a successful decision to sell to them? I don't know what my answer would have been at that time. I might have even say that no, we probably shouldn't have sold the company back in 2004, and maybe we should have continued. But looking back, it was the best decision that they probably have made, and the reason is that I got to work with so amazing people at Digital Chocolate. And got a lot of responsibility, and I owe so much to the people who are going to let me kind of grow the company and make a lot of mistakes. And through those mistakes, we learned a lot. thanks to the digital chocolate experience that brought me to Barcelona. I got to, meet the great people. Some of them are here today, like Gerard and Manel and Elias and many, many, many more, David and others. That's been great. And I believe that very big influencer on the Supercell and how we kind of ultimately decided to build the culture, and it was the learnings like from the digital chocolate days, and I oftentimes kind of call it my like sort of MBA in entrepreneurship.
Leaving digital chocolate at that point was a good decision for you. Let's talk about good decisions that brought Supercell to the point that where it is today. What do you think are the highlights in the decisions you and your co-founders and team took when building Supercell?
Well, there's of course like several things. I think the best decision, by far the best decisions, have been the hiring decisions. So, like as I said, we were 6 of us co-founders, but we actually, like many of us, have had very little to do with any of our hit games, and I think we were smart enough to hire people who are better and smarter than we are. Like, for example, we hired Timur, who's there as a modest guy. He's there in the back row, but he came on like early on, and was instrumental in building our hit games like Heyday and Boom Beach, and has contributed in so many other ways, and there are many other examples like that. So we've made some really great hiring decisions. From like more entrepreneurial perspective, I think what we got right was that when we were raising our seed round of financing, we somehow, like, it was actually a surprisingly easy round to raise, because in our first meeting that we had in Finland with somebody, a local business angel, he said that, okay, I'm in. He said that in the first meeting, and I'm gonna take the whole round. But then we were like this close as just taking it just from him. But that would have been a huge mistake, because then we would have only this one Finnish guy as an investor. And then I got lucky because I had met with our future chairman, like Petteri Koponen, who told me that, hey, Ilkka, like you should definitely go to London and see like who else you could get on board. And then we went, and actually we were able to like get people like Christian Segerströle from Playfish and David Gardner from LVP to invest. And without that single advice from Petteri, like we probably wouldn't be here, because then it was actually like people like Christian and David who helped us along the way to, for example, raise our Series A round from Axel Partners, which was the €8 million round. And without that round, I don't think he would exist, because with that €8 million, what it enabled us to do was to take big risks. It gave us enough runway to get things right. And if you're going to follow the history of Supercell, like it was quite tough the first 2 years. It felt that the only thing that we were really good at, or the two things that we were really good at, one was recruitment. So we, as I said, we were recruiting like amazing people. And the other thing was that we were really good at raising money. But then everything else like seemed to fail. Like we just couldn't put the product out that people would get excited about. And many, the first like maybe 3-4 things or games that we built were like eventually killed, but then thankfully Heyday and Clash of Clans came along, and then that changed everything. Raising money was something that we did right. Then the third thing is that I think, and what still I hope is true about the company, is that we have been good at making like some really hard decisions. Like, for example, when we discovered that this cross-platform strategy doesn't work, we decided to change the company entirely. So we made mobile, or actually not even mobile, tablets, the sole focus of the company. We say that we're going to be a tablet-first company, and then later on we will port these games to mobile. And then we killed everything else, like just ruthlessly. And it wasn't a hard, and of course later on it's easy to say that, yeah, of course it makes sense, of course people will play games on mobile, but again, this is the year 2011, it was way less clear at that point, and even that when in that pivoting moment, like lots of people actually left Supercell because they didn't believe in the new strategy, which of course also a good thing for everybody. You shouldn't be part of something you don't believe in. But I think it's our ability to like make hard decisions and also like kill games that don't just aren't like great enough. Those type of things I think have been instrumental.
And any bad decisions that you would confess, or I don't think there were many bad decisions, because even the bad decisions brought you here, so they are at the end good decisions. But anything that you remember that you would do in a different way, maybe, or you would try in a different way at some point, or you realized too late?
Yeah, I mean, probably like millions of things, but I think when you kind of are, I think almost like no matter what you do in life, I mean, I wouldn't even think about like successes and failures and such. I think it as a journey, and there's ups and downs, and even if you are approaching a down which you think is a failure, I mean, maybe that will prove to be a success later on. Like for example, like when I was a student, I applied for a certain jobs which I never got. And for example, I just give you a very concrete example. Like everybody in my class in university wanted to be one of these two things. Either they wanted to be an investment banker, preferably in London, by the way. London was the coolest place to be. And then two, if not that, they wanted to be a management consultant. So they wanted to work for companies like McKinsey and so on. And of course, these super well-paid jobs. And I also thought that, because that seems to be what everybody wants. So, I should do that as well. And I remember me like applying to some kind of summer trainee job at one of these management consulting companies. And I wasn't even invited for an interview. And I remember it felt really, really bad. Like how on earth can I be like such a miserable person that they don't even want to like hear from me? But imagine like had they invited for the interview, and maybe what if I had made it? Supercell wouldn't exist. I would probably have stayed there because that was a thing to do. So you never ever know in life like what is a success and what's a failure.
Yeah, I agree with you. And but you always try to to understand if you are doing things good or right. If you are an entrepreneur, how can you know if you're going the right direction? I mean, what kind of clues can you have as an entrepreneur that tells you I'm going the right direction, even if I'm not having a good time now, a good moment? I know I'm going the right direction. Any clues that tells you?
Of course, it depends a lot in the situation and what type of business you are in and what are sort of the metrics that you are kind of looking at. Like how I think about it myself is that I oftentimes I just go through the teams and the people I have and how do I feel about them, and if I feel that I have great teams who I can trust and great people, then that's really all you can do ultimately, and then probably things are good. But if you start to feel uneasy about any of the teams or any of the people, then that's a like huge red flag, at least for me. But then of course, like depending on what is it that is exactly your goal, then of course there are like certain more concrete metrics as well.
And how important is the environment to raise a company? I mean, Finland, we all, I don't know if we know or figure out that Finland is a great place for startups right now and for gaming companies as well. How important is to be surrounded by a great ecosystem to be successful with your company?
Of course, it is important, but the good news is that great ecosystems they are all over the globe these days, and the great news is that like really amazing companies can come from anywhere in the world, and especially if you work on something that you're doing a service or a product for the consumers, and especially if you work on mobile. I mean, a player in Texas in the US, I mean, she doesn't care where the game was built. I mean, the only thing she cares about is this great game. It doesn't matter whether it was built in Helsinki, Barcelona, or like wherever, London, US. So these great ecosystems, like they can be in many different places. And I think what was said about like that Europe can actually challenge Silicon Valley, I think it is absolutely true. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why the next Google or Facebook couldn't be born out of Europe. Like, I mean, all of these companies do not have to be born in the Bay Area in California.
It's more the mindset of the people that we need to believe more on that in Europe.
Well, that's what people say. So if you go and ask like almost any US-based venture capitalist, especially like these really successful ones, and you ask them that why is it that why is it still the case that most of these like $10 billion plus companies are born out of US and not from Europe? So why aren't there more companies like say Spotify coming from Europe? Usually they say that the biggest difference between the entrepreneurs and the teams in Europe and US is the level of ambition, and that's really the only difference. So, and maybe it's a bit of a cliche, but I believe that it is true. And even, and it's true even if I think about Helsinki and Finland as an environment. So 10 years ago, like most Finnish companies or startups would think about like launching a product as okay, first I'm gonna pilot it in Finland because that's sort of an easy thing to do, and I can do it in my own native language and so on. And if it works in Finland, then I'm gonna take it to Sweden, and then I'm gonna take it to Denmark and maybe Norway and whatever, and maybe finally I'll try it in Europe, and maybe after that, if that works, I go to the US. But then like after the success, I think of like something like Angry Birds. The whole thing changed, because now I think like most startups and especially gaming startups, I mean, everybody just thinks that no, I'm going to be a global company from day one, and that sort of the increase in the level of ambition, I think explains a lot. So if you think about like, imagine that you would be a really good football player. Like, in which team do you want to play in? Do you want to play in the team that wants to win the Champions League, or do you want to play for a team that is completely happy with playing in some like local under divisions? And of course, the best players want to go to the team that wants to win. So therefore, like it tends to be the case that the most ambitious companies, they tend to get like the most ambitious like financing, the best investors. They tend to get the most ambitious people, advisors, everything, and but it all starts from the ambition level. So when it's kind of high, then people start to follow, and it almost comes with like self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. So I would encourage everybody to have just those big dreams, and it's of course it's tough, because when you have these really big goals, it's very likely that you're going to fail. But that's okay. Then you just stand up and take a break and then try again.
So that's what changed in Finland and in the Nordic region, that kind of mindset at the ambition level, and it was started by the success of some companies, right? It was like
as a Finn, I would give huge credit to the guys at Rovio and Angry Birds, and like I don't know like how much you guys like have followed the press that Peter Westerbacka did at the time, and people have like various opinions about it, but and Peter Westerbacka, by the way, is a very, I mean, he's a very untypical Finn.
Yeah. Well, we know him very
because
well.
he has like he has kind of a guts to like talk about big dreams. And I remember like when Rovio was like 25 people, I had just left Digital Chocolate, and Peter called me and said, hey, I have this new gig at Rovio, and why don't you visit our office? And then I visited their office, and it literally was 20 or 25 people, and he showed me the game, and he said that, hey, it has started really, really well, and now we are like, I think he said 1 million downloads. But you know what? We're going to be 100 million downloads very soon. And then I remember me smiling, and I left the office thinking that, yeah, this is one of those Peter stories again. It's never going to happen. And then I think a year later he called me, but hey, small mistake. It's not 100 million downloads. It's 1 billion downloads. and I think that moment changed at least my thinking, but I wasn't the only one. It was really inspiring for everybody. And I literally think that things changed at that very moment. And people, I mean, then Peter Westerbacka is talking about these billions of downloads. Like, how can you possibly talk about? I mean, 1 million isn't like cool anymore, and you don't want to even talk about it. But I think something mentally changed.
Yeah, I agree with you. And apart from that, what other things are special in Finland now that makes Finland? Did the government or something else follow up with this change of mindset? What kind of things should we copy apart from that in the rest of Europe? Do you think?
Well, there's a few things. So one thing is that Helsinki. I think it's just a great environment in a way that it's safe. The infrastructure works. We have great schooling system which is free for everybody. So it's just a great place to live from many different perspectives, especially for people with families. And that's increasingly important for the best talent. So kind of the basics and the foundation is there. Then the other thing is this sort of public funding system that we have, which I heard you guys have as well. But if you are, especially in the early stages, if you have a money or you can find somewhere money to be invested into your company, then basically essentially the government doubles that money through different type of mechanisms that they have.
Maybe we need to work on the ambition of that as well, right? Is there just another level of ambition?
Yeah, and then, it's not that Finland Finnish people are perfect in that either, but I think at least we've made some progress. And maybe like the other thing that it's worth mentioning, in our Helsinki office at SUPERCELL, we have people from 30 countries or more, and I oftentimes ask them about like, okay, what do you like most about being here? I mean, not at SUPERCELL, but being here in Finland, and then they usually say the things that I just said, the schools and it's being safe and all of those things. But then they also say something that has been very surprising to me, and they say that we actually like the Finnish work culture. And the work culture is such that people show up to the office usually around 9 a.m. and then they leave at 5 p.m. Like I always leave almost exactly at 5, and most people do that. And it's Finns, once you've dealt with Finns, that they don't really talk that much and they can be quite direct, but it makes the culture and work culture quite efficient. So we don't really spend much time sitting in meetings, and meetings, at least compared to some other maybe cultures, can be very short, and people are extremely direct in the meeting. So because there are cultures where like something is being discussed in the meeting, but then the real decisions happen outside the meeting because people don't speak their mind, and that doesn't happen often like at SUPERCELL, but I think it has its roots in the Finnish culture of like it's kind of like this kind of no bullshit type of culture in many ways. So the working culture is direct, and there's very little politics and anything like that, and that's something that lots of people like.
And you have been investing in several companies outside even Finland. Do you find there's a big difference in working with them in that sense, in the sense of that working culture?
No, not really. Because I mean, of course, I'm like generalizing things.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are like hugely political companies in Finland as well. I just haven't been in them, but I'm sure there are many of those, and there are like companies which are exactly like us elsewhere, and I've been lucky to invest in some of them as well. So, and I don't think it's a culture of country that somehow like dictates what is the culture of the company.
And how much is the responsibility of I don't know if I say the responsibility of the companies like SUPERCELL in getting things better in that ecosystem, right? But you have SUPERCELL has been very active, involved in trying to give back to that community, to that ecosystem. Is that something that you think should be more common, or at least is clearly something that you have in mind from the very beginning, that to get better you have to get better everything around you and help not only living to the public space to build that possibilities?
Well, the way I think about it, and I guess the way we as a company think about it, is that, like, first of all, it's clear that we as a company and as people, as human beings, we've been like just incredibly lucky. I mean, it's just ridiculous how lucky we've been. And of course, we have great people and we work super hard, but we've also been super lucky in what we do. And there's like lots of other companies and teams out there who have worked equally hard and are probably a lot smarter than we are, and yet they haven't seen success. And so it's clear that they've been lucky. How we see it is that because we've been so lucky, I think that puts a huge responsibility in our shoulders that that we can somehow like help the people who have been less fortunate than we have been. I do think that the luckier and the more successful you are, like the more responsibility you have to kind of help others. And when I went to the kind of business school, like they taught us that the single biggest and if not the only mission of a company is to create shareholder value. So that's all that counts. And I think that's just fundamentally it's such a stupid idea. Like if I would say at Supercell that, hey guys, like we are only here to create money for our shareholders, I'm pretty sure that 50%, if not more, people would walk out like at that very moment, even if everybody at Supercell is a shareholder. But that just isn't like frankly inspiring at all. Like I mean, if the money and creating money for shareholders is the only thing that ultimately motivates you, like I think it's just boring and it's not inspiring at all. So I mean, of course, what inspires us is to create games and great games. But then I do think that for many at us, it means a lot that they know that, okay, if we are successful and if we can create these great games, which then bring financial value, but at the same time, not only will it benefit myself and my colleagues, it will benefit the community around us. Like for many, it's one of the, brings you like one more good reason to come to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about Hive Helsinki. That's one of the latest projects you have been pushing, and it's related to that vision, right? It's an educational project.
Yeah. So Hive Helsinki is this new type of coding school, and by the way, I want to be very clear. It's one of those things that wasn't my idea. Actually, it wasn't anybody's idea at Supercell. There's a gentleman called Xavier Niel, who's a legendary entrepreneur in France, who was the main innovator of the concept. But anyway, I got to know Xavier through some event, and I heard about the coding school that he had established in Paris, and I wanted to visit it because I heard so many great things about it, and I was very inspired about a couple of things. So first of all, this coding school has no teachers. Like there are no teachers in this school. There are also no classes. There are no like opening times and ending times. It's a 24/7 school. People can come in and go out as they want. And basically how you study is you could almost think it as an like MMO game. It has this map. You start from the very center of a map, and then you do some basic courses, and then you can like choose your own way around the map and think about this map hotspots as different topics or assignments in the field of coding. And it covers like a huge variety of coding, from databases to data security to games to 3D engines to all kinds of things, whatever you want to learn. And the really cool thing is that because there are no teachers, like then the question is that who do you learn from? Well, in this school you learn from the other people, because every single assignment is done in groups of people. Mm-hmm. So and people learn from each other, and it creates this like incredible dynamic where, because there's no teaching staff you can ask from. So people need to ask from each other, and it really like teaches you to be very proactive and very entrepreneurial. And by the way, these assignments are like super crazy hard, especially when you get to the end. So the end result is like great coders who can think creatively, who know how to work with other people and who are entrepreneurial. So that sounds pretty good. And the last thing is about this school is that it's open for everybody. So you don't need to have a degree, you don't need to have any experience in coding to get in. So the first phase is this online test, which anybody can try out. Like even if you want to go and try out right now, just go to Hive Helsinki and give it a try. And if you complete that successfully, then you are invited for the next phase, and you have a chance to go to this phase, which is called the swim pool. And basically what that means is that basically they throw the students to the deep end of the pool, and then they see like who can swim. That's where the name comes from. And the swimming pool is this boot camp period of I think 4 weeks, and during which I think, for example, like I think we had two swimming pools of 200 people each, and then maybe like 60% of the people then remained after the 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it's a crazy hard period, like for the coders to be in, and definitely not for everybody. But the ones who make it through are then really, really great quality people.
And I guess there are many reasons to push a project like this, but one of them might be like that you anticipate the need of filling a gap of people working more and more in this digital space, right, in the future.
Yeah, if you look at if I look at my own company and the people who create these products, we still of course, like people do come from diverse backgrounds, but it could be still a lot more diverse, and we wanted to make sure that we have a kind of new type of coding school that welcomes people from all kinds of backgrounds and whatever that is, and there are like amazing stories of like one of the people, for example, who made it through the first swimming pool was this guy who was actually a janitor, zero coding experience, and so through some way and hard work he made it through, and now he's studying full time in the school. And it gives coding is for everybody. I mean, we shouldn't have any kind of artificial limitations, and we shouldn't have this picture in our head like who is it for. I mean, it really everybody can be it if you want it enough and you are talented enough.
It's interesting because when we talk about diversity sometimes in these other industries, we tend to think about, I don't know, when we talk about diversity in programmers, we say, no, we need programmers that are men or women or from any cultural background, from any kind of race, whatever. But if you think about magicians, it's like diversity means like giving the magic to everyone, right? So if everyone could do the magic, everyone could create things that are different and they are diverse as well, right? So it's kind of the same, empowering everyone to be able to create things through coding in a way, right?
Yeah, in a way, like coding is just a language to turn your dreams into a real thing. And if you can sort of imagine it, if you can imagine it, then you can probably also code it, like, of course, if you have those skills.
Mm-hmm. Because SUPERCELL and ILKKA are always very kind and they like to share. I would like also to be the same as them in this occasion and like to share with you the opportunity to ask him maybe a couple of questions if you have them. So I have 2 more questions for him. You get ready your questions if you want to ask him any questions about whatever. Okay, yes, I see some people already raising hands. A couple of questions for you, ILKKA. This is one question that I was getting from the very beginning, since I announced that you were going to be here. Many different people told me to ask you this question. It's like, what are the opportunities now for a team like your founding team at SUPERCELL to become successful in the games in the mobile space? I mean, it's like you came at the right moment. It was like I wouldn't say easier, but would it be possible now for a talented team to succeed today, starting from the ground?
Absolutely, I don't see any reason why not. I mean, of course, you have to do something that's different. I mean, don't look at the top charts and do a better version of something that already exists. That I think would be a mistake. Try to imagine something completely new. That's what I would do. And even if there are, I guess there are examples in the market there, even the former strategy could work. But that's what I would do. I would try to like imagine that, okay, soon it's going to be 2020, like what are the mobile games going to be in the future, and what hasn't been built yet.
And another question would be, what are the challenges for Supercell right now? Like being at the position that you are, top of the charts, top of the,
Well, at least two challenges come to mind. Of course, like the first challenge is something that we've always had and that everybody has, and that just relates to that. How do you build the best teams? Like how do you? I mean, putting together a great creative team is hard, as I'm sure everybody in this room knows, and it's definitely not as simple as that you put together the best individuals. What makes a team work? It's an interesting question, and we have no magic formula on that. So it's a bit of a trial and error, and finding the best people and placing them and composing the best teams. That's a challenge. One other challenge that we didn't really think about in the early days because we didn't have that problem, but it's also interesting. Like I think one challenge for us as an organization is that how do we take sort of even bigger risks, and how do we do not think about the past successes, rather we look at the future, and because like it's interesting, like when we were building Heyday and Clash of Clans back in 2012, we had no prior success, and we basically had nothing to lose, so we just built the games and we put them out, and of course we had no idea how big they would then become, but we just built the games, and I wish we had exactly the same mentality today. That's exactly what we should do. We should just build the games and see how they work and not worry too much about stuff. But then you kind of like have like some people think that it's a good problem to have, and maybe it is a good problem to have. But our problem is that sometimes we get sort of caught up in the past successes, and we have these discussions that like what would Clash of Clans team do in this situation? And I think that's, in most of the time, it might be the wrong question to ask, because when you're looking at the rear view mirror, you're not looking like ahead. So I just hope that we could forget all the past successes and just focus on the future and just be brave and build crazy new things, and knowing that most of us that stuff will fail, but if you continue to be lucky, like maybe something is gonna also be a success.
So have time for couple of questions? No? Just one question? Well, can we pass the mic?
Okay, so good evening, ILKKA. My name is Gerard Palau Rivas. It's my first year here learning coding in NT. I would like to ask you, you already said you went working at 5 p.m. every day. So I would like to ask, what do you do on your free time to just fresh your mind? And not just you, what is your team doing for freshening its mind?
That's a good question. So what do I do? Well, I try to do at least as much sports as I can. I'm a huge ice hockey fan. I'm not a very good player, but I do play 2 times a week, and mostly in the mornings. I follow a lot of sports. Then of course I have a family, kids. I spend time with them, read books. Those would be some of the things that I do. And what do the others do? I mean, it really it depends, I guess, on a person. So I mean, everybody has their kind of normal life, and I think it is important. I do think, and especially as you kind of grow older, you start to realize that if you can't just be working like 24/7. It very easily like makes even the work less productive, and I can tell from experience, because I wasn't always like this. When I was 20 something, I worked like probably like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14-hour days. And I couldn't understand people who even took like vacation. Like, why do you take vacation? Just go as hard as you can. But then you kind of grow older, you start to realize that actually, like, our type of work, I mean, we are all doing creative work, and it's not about the hours we put in. It's about the quality of the ideas and the quality of the execution. In factories, it may be about hours, but it definitely, that's not true about games.
Any last advice for the Barcelona talent, creative talent, to succeed?
No, I would say that keep on doing what you guys are doing. I think you guys have every single ingredient in place in here. I mean, Barcelona is a wonderful city. I would imagine that it's way easier to attract talent to Barcelona than it's to Helsinki. I mean, our best recruitment months are the summer months, and now it's the worst possible time to try to convince anybody to move to Helsinki. Well, you guys don't have that problem, I don't imagine. There's a huge amount of like great talented people here already. You have a long history of creating games, so I would say that just keep on doing what you're doing, and aim even higher, and you aim to be the global number one, and have these crazy ideas, and go at them, and if enough people continue to do that like for long enough time, those like massive successes will also come.
And I said the last one, but the last one is this: something for the people in the government that are already supporting, but something that motivates them to support even more in the right direction, this industry.
Yeah, so obviously, like, governments can't create great companies, but what governments can do is that they can create an environment where these companies can be born. So focus on the essentials, like make sure that the infrastructure works great. Make sure that Barcelona is a great place for great talented people, like for the local people, but also like people who move from abroad. Make sure that the talent from foreign countries, when they settle in, that you treat them well, you provide services, schools in English, for example. Keep on doing like that public funding. I think it's going to be important in the early stages. Those type of things, and maybe one last piece of advice for the local ecosystem for you guys is that keep sharing like the stuff that you learn with each other. I mean, do not think other companies as competitors. Think them as family members or friends. I mean, that's really important, because if all of you guys can share your successes and failures openly with everybody, what will happen is that the learning accelerates within the ecosystem, and if that accelerates, then the ecosystem will get better, and like if the ecosystem gets better, it's going to benefit everybody. Like in a way, like for example, like when Rovio was successful in Helsinki, not only did it benefit Rovio, it benefited everybody. Like for example, we couldn't have raised the type of money we did unless Rovio was so successful as they were. And I think one of the really big strengths about Helsinki, which I forgot to say, is that there in the local gaming community, I mean, we get together, like I think it's like first Tuesday of every month in this pub night, and it started as a gathering of like 20 people like 20 years ago, and now I think there's probably 500, 600, 700 people gathering. So it's a big gathering, but still there's this culture where companies help each other out. And that, I think, has made the ecosystem so much better and stronger. And it just means that we learn quicker, because not only do I have access to my information, there's tons of people around me who will help me out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's very inspiring. And I think, as we said before, that we need to build some bridges between Barcelona and Helsinki.
Absolutely.
And potentially continue this conversation and many others with you and other members of the Finnish industry in the near future with some of the great companies and talent from Barcelona. So looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you very much for sharing with us, for attending and working with us in the great agenda that we had today. I hope you enjoy it and you come more often to Barcelona even. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
¿Otro? ¿Dónde? Ah, ¿con eso? ¿Ahí? Ok. Great.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
¿Sacamos otra foto?